that was 3 years of making the movie was the anime slider.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be funny if it was just a slider. Ah, too big. Oh no, the slider broke. They're huge.
It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment movies.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And welcome to a double-header spoiler cast review episode for Lego Movie 2, the second part, and Alita Battle Angel, the first part.
That's the first part, and honestly, probably, unfortunately, with the box office that I just looked up, may very well be the only part. But, you know, we'll see if we want more of it once we jump into the reviews. But like we do with all of our reviews that pop up in your feeds if you're subscribed, we're going to talk just spoiler-free, just off the top, and then we'll jump into spoilers. So since we're doing a back-to-back here, Chris is going to do a good job keeping track of the time code. So if you're on a podcast app, you know, just check the description if you want to see when we start Alita, or if you're on YouTube, just look at those time codes. You can jump around, find whatever you want, because some people don't have the whole holiday weekend to go out and see movies. So there's a good chance that maybe you haven't seen any of these films, but maybe you just want to hear about them anyway. So stay tuned and we'll spoil it for you.
We are going to ruin these movies for you all over the place. You don't even know. So if you haven't watched them and you want to, without knowing anything about it, stop now, turn back, turn it off, go somewhere else, go watch the movies. We don't care. But we're going to talk about them. And I think the best way to do it probably is the one we saw last, or the farthest away, which is Lego Movie 2, the second part. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, chronologically, if we were going to talk about these movies, that was a week ago. Alita was just a few days ago. So if people were around, 2 weeks ago for our normal weekly podcast, I kind of laid down what I thought. You informed us a little bit the other day, so let's just recap here, Chris. Spoiler-free, how did you feel about the Lego Movie 2?
The Lego Movie 2 is definitely a sequel of the Lego Movie. If you know what that means it's not nearly as magical and mystical and fun. It's still an okay movie. It's not bad. It's good, but it just doesn't fulfill me. I still have a hole inside, like a nice Lego-shaped hole that's missing that perfectly fit brick to go in there. It's not saying that the animation isn't cool, and the characters could use a little work, but I think it's got a good message and it's a good family-friendly film, but it just lacks that awesome feeling where everything is awesome from the first Lego movie. And as they say in the popular song in this one, this movie did not get stuck inside my head because I'm still struggling to remember some of it.
Did you know, this is a spoiler-free just because it's related to the music, but did you ever watch The League, about the fantasy football crew? There was a sitcom on, I think it was TBS.
I did not
know. There's a very popular character on that show named Taco, who was just like the dude that didn't understand fantasy football. But that guy, outside of the show, like in real life, he makes a lot of like really funny parody music out there. Like, have you heard the song "Show Me Your Genitals," Chris?
No, I haven't.
It's actually a very catchy song, very catchy as opposed to maybe some of the songs in this film. But he actually did some of the songs in this movie. So props to, I think it was John Lejeune. He has like a Frenchy last name.
With John Leguizamo?
No, that is definitely not it. But I thought that was kind of a funny connection because he makes some really adult humor along the side of Lonely Island, which has the song at the very end of this movie. But yeah, I would agree with you. A lot of the magic that we got from the Lego movie comes from the very first film when you get to see all the tricks for the first time. This movie is relying just totally on the story because we've already seen Legos animated now in the Lego Batman movie, Lego Ninjago. They even got that Unikitty animated show, which is Lego adjacent. So, we kind of seen what Legos can do on the big screen. So when you're kind of just left with just these IP less characters as opposed, Batman's there. But I remember when I watched the first Lego movie, I felt like there was a lot more intellectual property in it. There was that whole scene where they're in that like grand cathedral, and he's like talking to Abraham Lincoln over there. Yeah. He's pointing at like Gandalf and who else? What was the other wizard in that movie?
The one from Harry Potter.
Yeah. Oh my God! Why can't I think of his name?
You're gonna be so. I'm telling your wife. I can't think of it either. So.
Oh my God! What's wrong with us, Chris?
We're not here to talk about Harry Potter though. We know this. We're talking about Lego. I agree with you. Even Lego Batman had more IPs in it than this one did at the end of the day.
Yeah, especially with the villains at the very end.
Yeah. So.
Dumbledore. Oh my God, that was his
Dumbledore.
name.
That's right.
That was driving me crazy.
Because he calls him Dumbledore in the movie.
He's probably gonna bust through this door and like smack me in the face. I can't believe it slipped my mind.
Even there, like I think the one-off lines were better in the first one. Because one of my favorite things is there's that battle in the first one, and he's like, what is it? He says, you can't touch this or something like that, or something like that. The basketball player. I don't remember, but
can you tell it's been a while since we've seen the first Lego movie?
I like the first one, I really do, and like it's so unexpected as well in the first. Cause you're like, oh, Legos, what can they do with Legos? What is this? Like I said, Barbie's Beach House Mansion 2 or something like that. They don't. It's really great, and this one just doesn't reach that level. And I think, is it because the IPs are stripped back? I don't know. Maybe it's because this story is so confusing. For a comparison, we'll spoil later. It makes Doctor Strange look easy. So,
I mean, as opposed to all that, though, I think I would still recommend it. It's still a good movie.
Yeah.
It just doesn't quite reach up to maybe some of the other films in its franchise, like Lego Batman, which is a great Batman movie in its own right. The Lego Movie, the first time you really get to be introduced to Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Even though they did do the screenplay for the second one, it was a different director, so it was kind of his own spin on the movie. He came from like the Trolls movie previously, but I think we should just like jump into the story, jump into the spoilers, because we're neutering ourselves here if we have to keep walking around it.
It's very hard to do that. So spoilers it is, Mike. This movie has time travel and Legos are real or something, and like what is going on here? I don't know what happened. How did Emmett get under the washer and dryer and then go back to the past to stop his? I guess he didn't really stop the dude from smashing it, but like, I don't know what that was at the end, and I don't know how that solved all the problems. Yeah,
we're really raising a lot of metaphysical questions of what is it to be a Lego. I didn't want to put this in our spoiler-free section, but we have a lot more humans, real-life humans in this movie, as opposed to the first one, where I feel like we just got humans just a little bit at the end. Like, you didn't know Will Ferrell was going to be in this film until nearly the credits were about to roll. So that's when you kind of learned what you were watching in the first film was just what kind of these kids were almost playing out. It was almost just like this was all just like a metaphor of what these humans were going through in their real life with the super glue. So this movie goes to this whole different level of like, are we working with like Toy Story rules here? Is this like a Toy Story prequel? Like this is when toys first start to gain consciousness, and if they just will it, they can actually get up and move around.
You mean Small Soldiers? You're thinking Small Soldiers is what you're thinking of. And like the Legos, like, and they kind of did in the first one a little bit when Emmett jumped around a little bit on the floor, like, but it wasn't like enough to bother you at the end of the day. You're like, okay, he's got a like. I don't know. This movie, by the way, came out 5 years after the first one. 5 full years. That is way too long. Like, I think that is like what we talked about, like when sequels come out way too late and they just don't live up because too much time has passed. Like, this probably would have been good 2 years after the first one, Mike. Like, we probably wouldn't have thought about it.
I mean, I did appreciate that the film literally picks up where the last one left off. I mean, I'm a big sucker for like literal like toddler voices in voice acting, because they've been doing that in South Park for a while. With was it Kyle's little brother or Stan's little brother?
Kyle's brother.
So I love it that those like that those big like Mega Bloks type toys. I don't know exactly what are they called in the Lego universe? Duplos,
but they also show like other Lego products, because there's like 3 Wonder Womans at like one point of different.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of it was fun to see it pick up exactly where it left off. I love those little stars. They're like, oh, it's so cold. And, like, I was digging like those type of jokes. But then kind of when they go off into space and they're kind of, I guess, technically in the sister's room is where I kind of started wishing there was like a little bit more, because this one almost goes it kind of ends up going the Wreck-It Ralph 2 route, where there's actually no real villain in the movie, actually. Like, Mr. Business was the villain in the first movie.
And he had Bad Cop as someone to play off of. Like,
exactly.
There was actually a threat going on. And in this one, they think it's Queen whatever I want to be, because on this one I'm going to call her because that's really what her name was. And they're like, no, we're not evil. We just are really bad at sounding like we're not evil. Oh, okay. Who's the bad guy? Oh, it's future Emmett, who is all of Chris Pratt's characters molded into one.
But actually, I mean, this is just crazy because this is like just a PG, like, basically kids movie. It's actually none of that. Like, the bad guy is actually the older brother who's just basically going through puberty and can't control his anger. So that reflects onto the weird, like, time travel story that he's telling. Because, like, there's that cutscene where, like, the sister's like bugging him and he's like, leave me alone, I'm telling a very complex time story right now, and there's lots of moving parts. And so, yeah, it was just so weird. So it's like time travel, like, really wasn't happening, but it was. So, yeah, it's just so, there's so many layers here, and I don't exactly want to go to the lengths of saying, like, oh, this is like just genius screenwriting. They're really just playing with the idea of what it's like to be watching a movie and what's real and what isn't. At the end of the day, it's just almost kind of more confusing. Like, if this is really a franchise and we were going to get a third movie, like, what on earth do you do with the third movie? Like, is it just half live action now and half Lego? And are the Legos actually walking through the kitchen, like, you know, slipping on like a pepperoni? Like, what's the deal?
What stakes are left in the Lego universe, Mike? I guess like they could go the Toy Story 3 route, where they're going to be put away because the kids are going to college, or like there's a new toys in town that aren't Legos, or video game, whatever. You know, they could do a ton of stupid stuff. I think just cut your losses here, man. Just do it that way. Don't do a third one. But if they do, they've got to go back to the simple story of the characters. Like, I really hate that all the side characters only got, like, maybe 5 lines in this. Like, even Charlie Day's spaceman, like, they probably just reused lines from this first movie, like, because he only had like 5 lines. Like, you know, we talked about, you know, Nick Offerman being the pirate, and I was like, yeah, they really disguised his voice, but I'm like, but he only said 5 things. Like, how am I supposed to hear more of this dude if he's not? And
yeah, I think really my favorite part about the first Lego movie is all of the Lego jokes, because I am a huge Lego kid. I grew up on Legos my whole life, so I loved all the little jokes of like when stickers weren't put on quite right, or how like the spaceship guy had like a cracked helmet, or when they went off to different lands, you know, they're all themed differently, and just like the weird wacky jokes that they did with like what it is to be a Lego. Now it's just like we're just watching an animated movie, like where the characters just happen to be Legos. They're not really building. It's not really anything about like building Legos anymore, you know?
Like they tried to introduce the idea of the master breaker, which is the opposite of the master builder. Like, you're breaking Legos instead of building them. But did you notice the new effect they had on building Legos, where all the pieces they were choosing were highlighted in different colors?
Yeah, and they had like little serial numbers next to them.
The serial numbers were from the first one, but they like were it was very prominent, and they just have, it's like we talked about Transformers. I watched because they were transforming. Legos I want to watch because they're building things out of Legos randomly. They're master builders, and like oh, everyone's special in the beginning of this one, and it wasn't really that funny, or no one was really special anymore. When everyone's special, no one's really special.
I do have to say, I like, since the first part of the movie was the part I liked the most. I like the concept of why they were living in this Mad Max style world, where it's like they actually had to act as like tough as possible, because it did make sense. I was like, oh, if they have anything that's pretty looking, like the little sister, you know, is theoretically going to come down the stairs and take anything that looks cute or pretty. So I liked how Emmett was kind of forced to live in like this gritty world. So I loved that part of it. So yeah, I think the first half of this film is like solid. I really love it. But once they go off into space, and one thing that was really weird, the antagonist in this movie, the alien, the space alien, the Harley Quinn looking Lego. Yeah, like I swear her voice changes to two different voice actors, whether when the helmet's on or when the helmet's off. I don't know if that's the case, but it sounded like two totally different voice actors portraying the role. And I thought there was going to be almost a little bit more of a reveal too. Like when the helmet comes off, I was like, oh, what are we about to see here? Is this a character we've seen from the previous movie, or is this going to be something totally different? And I was like, no, it's a person like with hair. I was like, okay, so it wasn't a whole big reveal for me.
I was hoping it was like the Wild Star? Is that her name?
Wild Style,
Wild Style, like her Duplo version. Like it would be cool, like to see a reflection of herself, because you find out in this she doesn't have black hair, she's got pink and blue hair, and she was the lead singer of Everything Is Awesome, and she,
which I appreciated. Yeah, that. I thought that was kind of
there
fun.
are great things in this and some fun things. Like again, the Queen, whatever I want to be, her animation style is beautiful to watch. Like I'm really like they made Legos look fluid, like very fluid, and that was really cool. I liked that she's trying to convince Batman to marry her by like playing against his ego, and like their little sing off was pretty funny. I thought as well. So there's some really good points in this, but you hit it on the head. I was thinking like there's no real villain. There's nothing really happening or going on, and I just was like
Yeah, and that's difficult to do. Like, I appreciate somebody that wants to think out of the box and like, oh, let's try to do an untraditional story that doesn't have a central villain. But you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work because it feels like there's no conflict in the movie. And that's kind of how I felt with like Wreck-It Ralph 2, because since Ralph was kind of the main antagonist in that movie, I just kind of felt like, well, it just seems like, you know, if Ralph just kind of stops being like a dickhead, you know, things will just like go back to normal. You know, there's not really a whole lot that's going to happen to our characters here. So it was weird when he fell underneath the washing machine. He starts like rumbling around and he becomes alive. The only thing that was kind of cool about that is you kind of got to see stop motion Lego animation, which is something people have been doing online like forever. You know, they've had these little characters, these little Lego characters that are posable, and everybody's had a smartphone for years, so they've been able to make like stop motion things. So I thought that was kind of a fun hearkening to a different part of the Lego community, but I almost felt like there could be like a different way to introduce it. Like, remember in the movie Inside Out when they go through that weird imagination portal and they go through all of these different animation styles? Maybe something like that could have been a way to introduce like a different way to envision Legos. But I didn't think it was funny that Will Ferrell isn't even in this movie. He's just screaming. He's just screaming off of a camera, like, where are my pants? He's like some sort of dumb oaf.
Which is the basis for the first movie's show, Where are my pants?
Yeah.
Which was a little from references to that. I think it's funny, in the credits, they show Will Ferrell and all his name, besides his name, is a speech bubble. Because he was just a voice. Like everybody else had characters except him. He had a speech bubble. The end credits and then the Lonely Island song about watching the credits and how cool that is. Probably some of my favorite stuff to sing through the credits. Like that really cracked me up.
Yeah, I sat through the entire thing, and just something as simple as like outlining people's names in just like Lego bricks just makes it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, because it's not like just a slow crawl. It's just like this big rotating drum of Legos, and on each side of it has the credits on there. So I thought that was really cool. So there's still a whole lot of style and a lot of flourish in this movie for sure. But it just almost seems like they're running out of runway. Like, you know, where else do you push these Legos? Because at least in something like the Toy Story universe, we know our rules very, very strongly. Like the toys need to pretend to be fake, but when humans are around, they all come alive, and you know what's the ramifications of that. Like in the Lego universe, we don't even know if that's the case. It just seems like we're watching like some sort of interpretation of what a child's imagination is, and it's like, okay, this is strange, because if we buy into that means Emmett's not real. He's just a figment of a kid's imagination. But if you imagine him as being totally real and being able to will himself into existence, you're just like, well, okay, what world am I living in? Like, what happens to these Legos when they just get like put away? Are they sad like the story characters? So it's this weird middle ground where I don't know how to feel.
Well, I think the story tries to hit that point where like you're trying to teach us a lesson at the end of the day. Like the first, it's the same lesson as the first one. Playing together is way better than playing a part. And that's exactly what this movie tried to tell us again. So
I mean, you saw this movie a little bit more recently than I did. Do you remember the line that Rex Dangervest says when he's underneath the washing machine? Because I think Emmett actually says what the audience is thinking at that moment in time when they're fighting. He's just like, I don't understand what's going on. And he was just like, you don't need to understand what's going on, or something like that. It was like,
he's like something about like we're just toys, or we're just something like that. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
really
I thought
hit it on the head. Like, yep, this has reached peak meta right here.
Yeah, I thought at least I appreciated that line. So at least Lord and Miller, when they were writing their script, they're like, yeah, this is getting pretty out of hand. Let's just mention how crazy this is getting. So I would say I am curious if they do make a third film, like what on earth could they possibly do? I would just want to see it out of sheer curiosity. But comparing the opening weekend, so the domestic opening weekend for the Lego Movie 2 is now at like 34 million, and the first Lego Movie, its opening weekend, was just about 70 million, and they both came out in February. So the first movie definitely performed much better. Even the Lego Batman movie had better legs the opening weekend than that. So I don't know if just interest is waning, or what's going on.
I think honestly, just looking at the year over year, I mean, we're down, I think, quite a bit over like the beginning of the year. It's been down pretty hard.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it box office wise, because we're going to talk about box office again when we get into Alita. 2019 has a whole lot of ground to cover if it wants to compete with last year, because this time last year Black Panther was coming out, and that just ran the box office just to these catastrophically high numbers. So I don't think we can possibly compare the box office to last year, because we had such a spark out of Black Panther. So
but I think it's overall even. I mean, I'm just looking at, back in 2014, Lego Movie was the number one movie for the quarter. But like we're down right now 4 million over the first quarter, or 4 billion maybe.
Chris, are you trying to say Dark Phoenix isn't going to help us out later this year?
I'm looking at quarter. I'm just looking at, because you can't do whole years, because once a Marvel movie or another big movie blockbuster hits, they're done. Like the numbers are skewed in that favor. But,
well, it will be interesting, because we do have back-to-back years with high tier, like Endgame, pun intended, Avengers type movies. So it will be interesting to compare the box offices by the end of the year as a whole, to see maybe there will be some sort of secret breakout in there, because we do get we get like an actual real Star Wars movie this year. So maybe that Star Wars box office will pad out the numbers that Black Panther did last year.
I mean, Disney has 10 movies this year, and they didn't have, I think they had 6 last year, maybe, I think is what it was. It was a lot, maybe 6 or 8. It was less. And all of them are like, we're not the audience for all of them. We're not the audience for Dumbo or maybe even The Lion King or Aladdin as much, but like those Disney movies are proven to make money. Like Oz the Great and Powerful made money, and just like in the years, because that's on this list. And I've never seen that movie. Have you?
Nope.
Like exactly, they are just raking it all in. But I mean, right now the number one movie for this quarter, January to March, is Glass, with only 105 million gross. Like that is not record-breaking numbers there. So I just think overall the box office is down, and this movie, and then the next movie we're going to talk about, they're all suffering from it. Just people aren't going for some weird reason, and I have no idea why. But I think Captain Marvel will pick it back up. But
it's probably that polar vortex that just like sapped the entire country with ice and snow. Maybe people are still trying to recover from that. But
what was the article you shared about 15 weeks in a row the box office has been down the other day? Like Alita can't even save itself because of that.
Oh yeah, something like that. I'm not sure what it was there, but I guess before we jump off the Lego Movie 2 here, we could tie it into our Chris just sends me a wild meme in the middle of recording with Alita with very tiny eyes.
Yep, continue.
Okay. Yeah, you really threw me for a loop there.
Yeah, I did.
But we could tie Lego Movie 2 into just superheroes in general. I mean, there was a decent chunk of the Justice League at the very beginning before they literally like flew away in a jet, we didn't see him for a while.
So when I saw this, there was only 4 people in my screening. Me and my wife were there for the first 30 minutes, and 2 other people walked in later. And I about took out my phone. We got the Justice League going off to fight the Sistar system, and Lego Aquaman looks back at the camera and says, "My man," and I'm like, "Oh my god, this was made for Mike right here. Like this is gonna sell him on the movie right out the get go."
It was funny to see how Aquaman was interpreted, because I don't remember if Aquaman was in any of the previous Lego movies, and if he was technically Jason Momoa sized, but he was 100% Jason Momoa in this Lego movie. So it was funny to see how the DC kind of success transformed the Legos in front of our eyes. And they did make a funny Aquaman joke in the film, because they're like, "Oh man, the Justice League is left, and all we're left with is like vintage Golden Age Aquaman," and he's just like standing there like just being useless. So I appreciated that joke. That was funny.
There's some great references in there, and don't get me wrong, like I'm not hating on this movie. I just really like the first one compared to this one.
Yeah, because we're just comparing it to like when the Lego movie came out, it was one of my favorite movies of the year, the first Lego movie, and Lego Batman was almost just as great or even better. So yeah, we're just kind of comparing it to a film we really love, but I would still recommend this movie to people for sure. I mean, this isn't a kids movie. Kids will love it, and also adults will love it, just like any of the Pixar films out there. So go check out the Lego Movie 2. I would 100% still recommend this movie.
Yeah, it's great for your family, great for your friends, and so on and so forth. However, I think, just go ahead and lay my cards out here, the better of the 2 movies I saw this week was Alita Battle Angel.
All right, sounds like we're getting into it. So lay it down spoiler free in case people are kind of jumping between time codes here, trying to stay safely nested in a spoiler free zone. So lay it on spoiler free. What did you think about Alita?
Alita is a visually pretty movie. The action scenes are awesome. It's a technical wonder at the end of the day. But like all the technical wonders, Mike, it is a hollow film, devoid of any like true emotions or stakes for any of the characters in here. And I'm gonna tell you why here when we get into it. They threw me for a loop once, and then the second thing they threw me for was I could see it 10 miles off. So I just think it's a hollow film that's really, really pretty and exciting. And while, it's not spoiler free, like they want you to watch another movie because there is so much manga and anime based on this. There's a ton of stories, and this is just the beginning of that. So I would like to see, just lay my cards out there again. I would like to see the follow up to this, but like this is not the end all be all anime adaptation we were promised. So
yeah, I mean, for the most part, you can kind of see the twists and turns coming from a mile away, as opposed to a few little plot points that we'll get into later. But yeah, I would agree with almost everything that you would say. Technically, the movie looked really great. I have vague memories of watching the anime adaptation of the manga from a while back, so I kind of knew the general tone and directions that they were heading. But I feel like I remember the anime itself being much more brutal. I think the original story was a little bit darker, so I think they tried to get around that by making these cyborgs kind of bleed blue blood instead, and there wasn't a whole lot of blue blood in general, but there was some pretty killer action scenes that I definitely waited around for, and then once the action scenes were done, I ran to the bathroom, which the movie theater I was in, the bathroom was really far away. I had only been at this theater once before a while ago. Like I saw Zootopia there, so like I burst out of the doors into the lobby. I was like, "Where's the bathroom?" Alita just like mercilessly like destroyed like a cyborg. I got to make sure I'm back for the next time she does it, because that's the only thing I want to watch in this movie. So I felt like this movie ended like 4 different times. Like it was like, oh, it's ending now, it's ending now, it's ending now. It almost felt like episodic in general too. It felt like I was watching 2 episodes put together. Like there's almost like the last third of this movie is almost just a totally different story because they wrap up something a little bit earlier on. So yeah, the story is kind of stranging. I would be curious to hear the opinion of like a movie editor to see if maybe this could possibly be swapped around and maybe maybe change the order of kind of some of the events that happen in the film. But yeah, it looked beautiful. The eyes were not a problem. I was still totally immersed in the film.
Yeah.
We even get to see, some other characters that possibly have augmented facial features that I'm just totally on board with. Like I was digging kind of like this cyberpunk world. There's a whole lot more that we need to learn about the movie, and unfortunately they did not tell us because they are definitely hedging their bets on a sequel. And I don't think they're gonna get it, unfortunately. So I think their gambit was to push this movie to February, because originally, was this a November or a December release?
I think it was December, but it was like July of last year first. I think it's been almost about a year.
Yeah, they kept. I felt like they kept trying to like either try to polish the film to make it a little bit better, or just trying to strategically place it somewhere because they knew they wanted a sequel, so it had to do the box office just right. Well, and I don't think February ended up working for them. So it's unfortunate because even though all of those weird story problems I just kind of brought up, I would still like to see a sequel. Like I want to know where this character's going since they're finally fully fleshed out. No more idiot ball in their hands.
Before you write this off, this is not open in China yet, and that may be the push it needs. Estimated production budget was 170, as we can tell. Box office, I guess, with advertising, probably 400 million. And this could easily make it back in China as well over the next week.
Hopefully. That's one of the benefits of the film that it is. It's not really localized to any specific region in the fiction. I mean, it's based off of a manga, so maybe that Asian audience will really go to it and bolster it up. If I know a friend of the show, Quentin Parker, was a really big fan of this film, so I hope he gets his wish of a sequel also. When we were leaving the theater, I was just like, I don't know, man, I had the same wish for the Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, which were all financed basically by China.
Well,
I was just like,
you
come
got
on.
a second one though, and it didn't deserve.
Yeah,
that second
I know.
One.
I was like, come on, China, just give me one more. I want the TMNT trilogy. So I hope you hardcore Alita fans out there can get your sequel. And I don't know, maybe we can strike gold. I feel like it's been a while since I've seen like a mediocre beginning movie and then just a really stellar knocked out of the park sequel. So maybe this could do it. You have the James Cameron magic mojo, but we were talking earlier before we started recording, going through Robert Rodriguez's history as a director, because he is the one that directed this movie, and he's a very stylish director. He made I grew up at an early age watching the film Desperado before I definitely should have been allowed to watch it. There's a lot of nudity and a lot of violence in that film. He made one of my favorite movies, Sin City, which is extremely stylish and very visually pleasing to my sensibilities. He made these crazy, wacky Danny Trejo machete movies where like machete like disembowels somebody and repels out of a hospital window with their organs. So he's made these crazy movies that range from all over the place. Also doing the Spy Kids movie.
Yeah.
And when I watched Alita, it definitely feels more Spy Kids. Like I don't feel like I'm getting a visionary director as much as I'm getting a very visionary special effects team.
Well, I mean, if you've seen his Sin City movies, you would know this is true. I mean, those are not very good substance-wise, but they are very visually appealing to watch at the end of the day. And, while, we sit here and we talk about it, and like, it's just, I don't know if it's because she's not a human. Is it that's why we don't care, Mike? Or is it because of all the stupid choices they make throughout the movie?
Well, I think we should talk about the stupid choices.
Exactly, and that's what I'm going to get into. So we're gonna get into spoilers here about some of the stuff they do. Break. This is spoilers. Why do they save the kid to put him on a robot body to kill him 5 minutes later? Like, what the is going on with that, man? Like,
yeah, exactly.
They cut his head off to keep him alive, and he's like, I'm gonna go up this thing. It's the only way to go. And she's like, don't. And he's like, dead. He's dead. Like,
yeah,
that was all for nothing.
and they were just lucky enough that one doctor that probably could have performed this very delicate surgery just happened to be there when all of that was going down. And it was really, but the only thing that I appreciated about that whole scenario was it was such a bizarre choice to just put this main character, this pretty boy's head, severed, connected to tubes under her jacket, like giving him life support. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect that kind of choice from like a very safe movie. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was kind of weird just to save him, to just kill him off like by going up those cables. But at least they did it they saved him in a very bizarre way. But yeah, I don't think it was overall worth it just for that weird visual, you know.
I think the fight scenes are awesome, but they had to try and kill the big monstrous dude 3 times. Like, he's like a boss battle in Nintendo games. Like, third time you finally get to beat him, he's done. Like, every time he runs off scared. And she did that. Now, they did do 2 things that surprised me, Mike, and I'm going to tell you the first one. I swear to God they were going to kill her dad. I swear to God they were going to kill Christoph Waltz. And
oh, yeah.
I thought the blood from the trailers was his blood on her face.
Oh, God.
Come to find out, they kill a dog.
Speaking of that blood, my wife and I were leaving our place today, and we actually have an Alita Battle Angel billboard like just down the street from us. And, you know, we were stopped at a traffic light, and I was just like, hey, look over there, honey. And she was like, what? I was like, look at that Alita billboard. What do you think that stuff is under her eyes? And she was just like, oh, isn't that just, you know, that kind of stuff that, you know, the army or military puts on under their eyes? I was like, no, that's dog blood, baby. So they kill a dog in this movie, and it's not graphic because the camera does cut away, but it's just like, really, like, you just kind of, you thought the dog was going to die at the very beginning of the movie, but then Alita saves the dog, and then they just John Wick it to really give her incentive to go after the guy. I don't think they needed to kill the dog, so that just seemed excessive just to give the character some motivation, because it seemed like she was on board with destroying him whether the dog was dead or not.
I think it was, the point of the dog was to get the guy in the bar on board with his metal dogs, because she immediately gets cut. The next part was she gets cut in pieces, and I was like, holy shit, they actually did it. Like, she didn't beat this dude straight up the second time until she jammed her one arm she had through his face.
That was rad. I thought that was really cool, because it's like, how does this person going to get out of it? There's only one arm, and then I thought she was going to do like this gigantic like Sonic push-up that just sends her like through the ceiling and she escapes. But the fact that she punched him in the eye, that was really cool.
Through the head with her arm. And yeah, so my thing is, I also hated Ed Skrine's character who played Ajax in Deadpool. He was just walking around like, I'm a bounty hunter the whole time.
That's why he looked familiar. I kept looking and I was like, what do I know him from?
Yeah.
I almost thought at one point he was going to end up being a good guy, because in the bar he kind of comes off as like this smarmy dude, but then he kind of comes around for a second and is like, oh, you know, maybe I will take you under my wing and I can kind of show you what it's like to be a bounty hunter. But then he instantly turns into a creep right after that, kind of like putting his arm around her and says, you know, ditch the meat bag over there. So I was like, oh, I think that would have actually been a more interesting dynamic of like, she's got this kind of human boyfriend who's got these human goals, and you got this cyborg that's actually teaching her like practical skills for what it's like to live down on ground level. But he just ends up, you know, being a villain at the end of the day,
like one of many villains as well.
Yeah, and he very awkwardly stabs the meat bag too. I don't remember his name, but there's that whole conflict of just like, oh, he's wanted for murder. You got to kill him. That's the rules of being a bounty hunter. And then he just kind of gingerly walks up behind Alita and just picks up a sword and just kind of like pokes him like a roast in the oven. I was like, whoa! You literally just killed that guy, and there was no big deal about it. And I would have thought Alita would just kind of flip out and kill the bounty hunter right there, but no, she just awkwardly goes into a church and slices the head off. So yeah, lots of bizarre stuff happens.
Didn't she just cuts his face, like skins his face off a little bit? And he's not. No, she kills him. Yeah, she kills him. I'm like, who didn't die in this? All the robots pretty much died. She had to fight against all the people in Rollerball because they were all bounty hunters to kill her.
Yeah, the rollerball thing was a little bit weird to me. So I'm sure people out there that are like big fans of the manga, which is a series, it's an ongoing story, or maybe it pops up in the film. I don't the anime film. I don't remember.
Both.
But like Rollerball just kind of seems like something ancillary that gives the character the due. It kind of almost seems out of place in this movie. They make a point to say like, oh, if you're the first place winner, you know, it'll grant you access to this big angel world that floats above you. But you never really feel like that's actually like the only thing that they have left to do. Like by the time Alita decides to do it, like there's so much already set in motion in the film. It just seems like, well, even the audience here in the theater knows that this rollerball thing isn't going to work out. So why are you even showing this to us? It just kind of seemed like an excuse to just show off some like special effects, you know. Mm-hmm. It seemed like rollerball should have been something that happened like in Act 1, and then you finish the rollerball storyline after you thought that was your one way out, and then you continue on your story without rollerball. So it just seemed weird to tack it on, and it comes in right after she kind of defeats that big lug. You know, she puts him in his place with his arm, and then he disappears. So it just felt weird, like there was these big breaks in the story in this movie.
Yeah, there's some weird parts in this. I really wanted to go to the city in the sky.
Yeah, they talk about it the whole film, and you expect to at least see like a little glimmer of it, even like an aerial shot of what it looks like at the top, or maybe a little bit of like an eagle eye like fly through, even for a second before the credits roll. Like maybe even like imagine like approaching like the big bad guy. What was his name? Neo?
I forget. It's Edward Norton.
Yeah, which I thought was a really bizarre reveal, because I was like, who was that reveal for in the audience? You know, I was expecting the glasses to come off, and maybe it's somebody we've seen in the film before, or maybe it's like some really big star, you know, kind of like the Brad Pitt. Was it the Brad Pitt or no, the Johnny Depp cameo in like 21 Jump Street or something like that. But I was just like, what teenager that's going to this movie is impressed by this Edward Norton cameo? Like, the last time you saw him in a movie that was like hero related or like big budget related was the first Hulk movie. Like, are you going to a lot of Wes Anderson films? Are you seeing a lot of Edward Norton? So it was just kind of a strange reveal of just like, oh, I guess that's Ed Norton. That's cool. But who else is really getting anything out of that, you know, at the very end?
Yeah, I think they were planning on doing a sequel and like, oh, this guy's going to be the villain in the sequel and getting up there. She's a Martian robot. Is that a Martian berserker robot? And that's like, what happened on Mars? Where are all these Mars people that built these robots? What's going on there? Nova was the character of Edward Norton. But
there you go.
Holy shit! If you go into like the wiki on that, there's like 8 versions of Nova. So don't go down that rabbit hole, folks. The action scenes are great. It's pretty. I like the characters. Christoph Waltz. Alita is believable as a fully CGI character. I would put her up there like a little bit below Thanos level, you know, in terms of motion capture and complete, you know, thing. You kind of feel for her, but sometimes you don't, because she just walks into like a bar full of hunters who hunt cyborgs. And she's like, let's go do this together. And everyone's like, no, thank you.
She's extraordinarily naive, but it doesn't even seem like a character choice. It almost seems like we need her to have amnesia, and we need her to be really dumb so we can find a way to explain to the audience this really weird world. Because she kind of wakes up from a coma. You know, she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know her own name. She doesn't understand where she lives. And then there's just kind of this scene where she's just like walking through the streets with Christoph Waltz, and he's just like, oh, this is why this is this way. This is why we live in a big dump, and this is why everyone's an asshole, and make sure they don't try to jump you and try to rip you for parts. And you know, so it was just kind of like, can't she just like not have amnesia? Amnesia in general is just a really hard thing to tell a story around, because she's just carrying this metaphysical, bringing metaphysics back up again. She's just carrying this idiot ball around. She's just like, I'm a dumb character. I don't know what I'm doing. Explain it to me. I'm going to make really dumb choices, and we're just going to see what the consequences are. And then it's just like, oh, we're lucky that I'm basically a superhero, so when I make dumb mistakes, I can fight my way out of it. So it takes her a long time to really kind of become like an actual character that you actually like feel for. Most of the time she's just dumb, and it's really hard to sympathize with somebody that's just, you know, dumb for dumb's sake, you know? Yeah,
it really is. And her boyfriend was kind of stupid too. You know, for a city like enveloped in crime and rollerball, because about the only 2 things that happened, like, it's a lot. It seemed very easy for people to be like, I'm out. Like even Christoph Waltz's ex-wife is like, I'm out, to like one of the most powerful people who can control other people through his eyes and like voice. I'm like, she just said I'm out and walked away, and that was it. I'm like, I don't. How serious is the crime here, or what is going on?
It seems like things should be a lot more desperate. Like if this was like the last city left on the planet, really, and there's no law enforcement, they just let bounty hunters doing it, it seems like you shouldn't be able to walk outside at all. It seems like it should just be just desolation, just people like living in sewer drains, but they seem to be getting along. So the world is a little less believable than they want it to be.
How convenient is it her little boyfriend, on like the second day they've been dating, takes her to one Martian ship with one body, perfect for her, and she's like, I need to go in here, and then walks out with a new body. Like, why is the world full of jungle and lusciousness out there, and they're still living in this ragged city?
Yeah, and also for such a technologically advanced society, and their whole world has been totally shaped by this massive war that happened, I think they said 300 years ago, which 300 years ago from now was, like the 1700s or whatever. We got plenty of records back there of what happened back in the day, but it seems like people are like, don't really know what happened. They have like this foreign technology from Mars, and they don't really understand how it works, so they just leave it there. It just seems like there's definitely got to be somebody out there that's like scavenging and figuring out what these parts do. They almost treat it like it's literally from another dimension, and it's just like, it seems like you should be a little bit familiar with the enemy that was like attacking you. Like, how come you're treating it like such a weird fantasy object, in your eyes? That's one thing that I thought was strange. Like, you're such an advanced society that can just rip a brain out of a human and put it in a robot, but you can't figure out this weird spaceship that that crashed outside of the city. That's one thing that was kind of confusing me.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of confusing things in here, a lot of weird choices, and a lot of weird robots that Alita had to fight against, and at no point was I ever worried for her safety, though. And I think that might be because she's a robot, not a real person. And I really thought her dad was gonna die, man. They really threw me for a loop by not killing him. Like, I was like, oh man, they left him alive, and she's going out to finish her rollerball without her boyfriend who fell off the thing. So yeah, I don't know. This movie, it's fun to watch, and honestly, I like it more than the Lego Movie because it brought a lot of new stuff to the table, and the action scenes were very, very intriguing. But I didn't love it. I'm not. I wish they wouldn't have hedged, their bets so much on the idea of getting a sequel, because there's a lot of unanswered questions that, unfortunately, I think drag the movie down a little bit. I compared this movie a lot into my head to the Neil Blomkamp film Elysium, because it kind of had a similar story to tell of kind of like this advanced society in the sky that you're not allowed to go to, and somebody's trying to find a trick to get there. They're trying to sneak their way there. And I was like, well, at least in Elysium we kind of got to see the society. We jumped back and forth to kind of see the difference of what it's like to live on the surface and what it's like to live in the sky. And we really never got that comparison. It was just a big story to us. We don't really know what it's like up there. So it just kind of like, well, what happens when the character gets up there? They mentioned like, oh, you could, you'll be at the bottom if you go up there. If you stay down here, you can live like a king, where it's just like, well, what's going on up there? You've been talking about it the whole film. We never even get to see it. So that's just frustrating. Why did her body fall from the sky too? Like, why did her body end up in the trash? Like, you think up there they'd know she was a special robot who was alive.
Yeah, unless we're supposed to believe, because they showed that flashback where her and her Martian crew are running up those cables, and then the scissor things come down. I guess maybe she fell after that, but that would have been like
300 years ago.
300 years ago, and it's just like, did it really take somebody 300 years to just come across Alita? And then also Alita's being shown as like this amazing athletic superhero, and they said, oh, no one's allowed to go through those transport tubes. So I was just expecting her to somebody to hitch a ride on some garbage, or like a ship freighter on the way up there or something. Or she's just super powered. Like, why can't she just run up that cable and just like jump over those scissors and just go punch what'd you say, Nova in the face, or Nero, whatever his name was. It just seemed like nothing was really stopping her from getting up there, you know? So that's all these things I want to see in a sequel, but it's not just because like, oh, I'm anticipating it because they set the story up so well. It's just like, no, I'm just really frustrated that you didn't tell me all of these things, so now I got to wait around for a sequel. I'll definitely will not be going back to that theater for this film though, because those tickets were like $16, and I was like, man, this is a really expensive movie theater even for LA. So maybe I'll try a discount.
Yeah, a cheaper one for Alita too.
Yeah,
more Battler Angel.
That's a good way to review this film. I don't know if it was quite worth my $16, but I think it might be worth to go see. Maybe go check out like a matinee on the weekend at like a discounted price, or heck, maybe even if it's streaming somewhere like in the future, go check it out. But
it's good background noise. It's not horrible at the end of the day, but I mean it could have been so much more.
Yeah, I think the reason why it sounds like we're so negative about it is just because there's a lot of frustration there.
You want more out of this movie because it looks so good. And the actors are so good in it. Like, you really just want the story to carry them. And much like, I think that's the thing with both of these movies. Their story just didn't work out very well. So, And
we're slowly improving. The last film you could kind of compare this to would be Ghost in a Shell, you know, based off of an anime coming out of Japan, more of an Americanized cast. That fell totally flat for me. There was nothing redeeming out of Ghost in a Shell for me, but there is redeeming stuff out of this. So maybe if we continue along this trend, maybe one day our grandchildren will be able to watch like the DBZ cinematic universe, and maybe they'll just love it. It'll be what everybody's making. They'll be adapting every anime from the bottom to the top of the list, just like they're doing with comic books now, you know?
What Mike is forgetting, however, is one of the main producers / people attached to this is James Cameron, who has box office longevity.
That's true.
So we may see some legs out of this, Mike. I'm going to wait to watch the Chinese box office hit, but we may see some legs out of this movie if they can get it in there before Captain Marvel hits the theaters and just makes everyone forget about every other movie ever out there. So yeah, I think that's it for our double movie feature, Mike.
Yeah, what a back-to-back. If anybody sees any like drive-ins showing these back-to-back, that would be a very interesting.
You better get a good price on that ticket. $10 for both movies. I'd pay that. $5 each. That's 100% for sure. Also, Rob Rodriguez did do Death Proof and Grindhouse, one of the more recent double features in theaters, by the way. So it made like $25 million total. They did not make a lot of money on that movie. So anyway, Mike, any other notes for this? You good? We good?
I think that's it. I mean, the next kind of spoiler cast we have coming down our barrel, which will be Captain Marvel. That's going to be a big one. But I know Chris is slowly working his way through the Umbrella Academy. My wife and I just finished it today, so we watched all 10 episodes.
Jesus
so you
Christ.
know, stay tuned, stay subscribed. Maybe you'll see an Umbrella Academy spoiler.
Did
cast
you watch
pop up
Doom
in your
Patrol
feed.
1, episode 1 yet?
Not yet. I had a long conversation with my wife about we need to wait to watch that. It's just it like we said, it's in a different league.
Yeah.
They got different budgets on these shows for sure.
Okay, well then I will work on that as well. I also I did want to say one of my favorite things. My wife was not around when I said this, but they're in the middle of it. It's like, what'd she say when she stabbed in the face? "Fuck your mercy." And I'm like, oh, that was the PG-13 F-bomb they get for this.
Yeah, that actually was a badass line. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, that wins. So yeah, that was pretty good. Mike, if people want to know what you're up to and how you managed to watch 10 episodes, or I guess 8.25 episodes of Umbrella Academy in one day, where can people find you at?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram and Twitter, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, see what you're doing, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Valdan, Valdan. You can also hit me up on Instagram, Valdan87. Or you can go over to Comic UI. I will also, again, if you're going to C2E2 next month, hit me up beforehand. We'll hang out. We'll take a picture. Maybe I'll ask you a couple questions. You can show up in some interviews, and we'll go from there. Mike, if people want to listen to our normal weekly news episode, not just our review episodes, where can they find those at?
Well, as always, visit superheroslate.com. That's the best place you can find all the avenues we host our show and to get like our show notes. So if you're listening to a news episode of the Superhero Slate, which we put out every single week, we might be talking about leaked screenshots or trailers for films, or sometimes Chris is able to nab footage off of the internet before it gets removed and deleted, like the good leak stuff, and sometimes we have that in our show notes. So it's always good to head on over to superheroslate.com and check out the links. And you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. We'll put it wherever you want it. Let us know if you want it listed somewhere. And there's podcast services all over the planet. We don't know them all, but if you tell us, we'll put it there. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Reach out to us in our YouTube comments. Seek us out on Twitter. You can leave us a comment on Instagram. We love hearing from you. We love hearing when we're right. We love hearing when we're wrong. We'll be here every week no matter what. So if you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week. And sometimes, if you're lucky enough, twice a week. So stay tuned. Captain Marvel is coming up in March. Stay subscribed.
That's right. Or maybe Umbrella Academy if we get there first.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll catch you guys next week. See ya.
All right. Adios.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
Yes.
Hey, real quick, how do you prefer your chili? If you were to make chili at home, what do you do? Do you like just do a few ingredients? Do you like pack it?
I'm a thick chili kind of person.